Thanks so much for joining us here on In Focus. I'm Elizabeth Janelle. Since the tragic mass school shooting in Santa Fe, Texas last May, where a 17-year-old student walked into the high school there and killed 10 people, state lawmakers have been hard at work sifting through and discussing ideas to try to help prevent a similar tragedy. Much of what's been discussed has been about increasing mental health resources and also how to better secure campuses. We'll talk about some of the ideas being floated with our guests, but also later turn our discussion to how we'll pay for all of it. Schools are obviously asking for more money to help improve safety, but they've also been asking for more money in general for a while now. That's because of the state's complicated school finance system, which many argue is flawed. And during this 86th legislative session, lawmakers are hoping to finally come up with a fix for it, saying it's time the state ups its share of public education funding. And while members have been studying how to accomplish that in the interim, it will likely not be an easy process. And joining me now here to talk first about school safety is Jan Friese, Executive Director of the Texas School Counselor Association, and also Levi McClendon. He is a certified school counselor. And thank you both so much for being here today to talk about this very important topic. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So first we've heard lawmakers, talk a lot in the interim here about mental health, about the need to, make that more of a focus in schools after that tragedy, of course, that we saw in Santa Fe, and how we could use more counselors to help with many fronts. So first, how dire, is this school counselor shortage situation that we hear about here?
Yeah, so, I think just with the statistics that are out there that the kids have in the school, we definitely need counselors to address the mental health needs of the kids. Yeah. Just to give you just a quick example of some of the stats, like 1 in 8 kids last year at the high school level attempted suicide. Mm-hmm. So, you have in 1 in 5 in the past year has reported bullying. Has been bullied. You've had some 1 in 10 had reported experiencing sexual violence. So one of the major problems we have in school districts is we have these major mental health needs that school counselors are equipped to address, but in many schools we just don't have school counselors to do it, or they often may not be given the time they need to be able to focus on the needs of the kids.
So what I would say is the American School Counseling Association recommends 250 to 1. Mm. In Texas, the way that the Texas Education Agency reports ratios is they take the gross number of school counselors, the total number of school counselors, and then the total number of students, and just divide it. Mm. So they report that in Texas the ratio is 469 to 1, which is high. Mm. But we are working, we passed some legislation last session to require each school to report exactly how many school counselors they have, so we can get specific data for each of the campuses. Some campuses have 950 to 1. Some have 250 to 1, and in many of our densely populated urban areas where it's difficult to get counselors, and in our rural areas, sometimes you'll have schools that don't have any school counselor whatsoever. But when school counselors implement comprehensive school counseling programs, that is one of the ways for them to manage high caseload and still have a lot of access to students.
We'll be talking more about, school finance reform later on in the show, because we've got to talk about how we're going to pay for all of this stuff. We've heard the House Public Education Chairman say that he believes the school counselor shortage alone will cost the state, some $400 million in the next budget cycle. We're hearing about all these other safety initiatives as well that will cost money. So are you guys still remaining hopeful, though, that we're going to get the money that we need on this front?
Well, I think that's a difficult topic.
Yeah.
When you have people talking about property tax reform and then tying it to school finance, they're not really the same thing. We are taking the approach that the more information that we can get, for example, on the number of school counselors that we actually have on each of the campuses, if we can really teach principals and superintendents how to most effectively use their school counselors, then you can be in a situation where you have a large number of students, but because you are not being given non-counseling duties like lunchroom monitoring or bus monitoring or test administration, then counselors can be so much more effective in cost-effective way of reaching many more students.
And they're freed up in that way.
Yes.
That's nice. I was going to ask if you think that counselors are just going to be more busy, or if you think they've already been more busy this year because, more people might be reporting potential threats and things like that. Do counselors specifically follow up on those, or how does that process usually work?
Yeah, typically there's a district protocol that goes
Right.
with suicide assessments, but so I would refer to the specific district that we're discussing, but generally the school counselor will meet, do a risk assessment, and then collaborate with the administrator, the teachers, the parents to kind of make a recommendation about how to best support the kid.
There's been, as I just mentioned, other initiatives discussed here to help with school safety. One of the more controversial ones to increase the number of school marshals. Those are designated teachers, administrator, staff licensed to carry firearms in the event of an active shooter. We've seen the popularity of that program increase since the shooting, and we've seen lots of trainings for that. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's so scary if you have a kid who's going to school and not knowing what might happen in that school, and you want your kids to be secure. But when you have effective, comprehensive school counseling programs, as I mentioned, so in classroom guidance, the counselor goes into the classroom. It's a way for the counselor to see hundreds of students in a short period of time, be able to identify kids who are at risk, be able to identify kids who might be struggling with an issue. And then they also do responsive services where, as Levi was mentioning, they will go in and work with the kid to do an assessment. They also do individual planning where they work with the kids and the parents, and then system support where they identify what resources are out in the community. So although it is difficult, it's probably one of the most cost-effective ways to create a safe environment is to make sure that you not only have a school counselor on your campus, but that they're fully implementing comprehensive school counseling programs.
And I'll also add to that the discussion around having increasing marshals or more firearms in the school is very kind of a reactive focus. With school counseling is preventative.
Right.
So we can teach the kids those skills through guidance in small groups and work with parents and parent support groups to really help them gain those skills so that we can stop this in the forefront. And I think we really need to focus more on that, and school counselors are in a great position to be able to make those changes and make school climate safer for kids.
Yeah, and they can also work with school officials to try to drive, a more positive, just happy environment in schools, right? Which helps across the board, we hear, right?
School culture is essential to creating an environment, and there's a lot of data and research that shows that when a campus implements a comprehensive school counseling program, disciplinary referrals go down, grades go up, teachers, parents, and students say that they feel more safe. So there's data to support that if you really want to be cost effective and you really want to help the kids, let's get each one of them in touch with a school counselor.
All right, well, thank you both so much for joining us and for sharing this insight, and good luck this session.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
you're
you
welcome.
very much.
And when we come back, we'll break down the state's complicated school finance system, a look at what got us here, and also how lawmakers are feeling about school finance reform this time around. Take a listen.
Probably a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to really do this right.